Amelia Turner sat on the edge of her small bed, her fingers absently brushing the worn fabric of her violin case. The morning sun filtered through thin curtains, spilling across the room in a golden haze. She inhaled slowly, steadying herself. This was the day her dream should have begun. A one-way ticket to Paris, an acceptance letter into the conservatoire, the kind of opportunity she had spent her entire childhood preparing for. But instead, her suitcase lay unopened in the corner. The violin rested untouched. She wasn't leaving, not for Paris, not for the stage, not for the life she had always imagined. She was staying, for him. At the thought of Daniel, her lips curved into a bittersweet smile. He had come into her life like a storm, sudden, electric, and impossible to ignore. He wasn't perfect. In fact, he was reckless, too impulsive, sometimes careless with his words. But when he looked at her, she felt seen in a way no standing ovation had ever made her feel. Subscribe to the channel for more heart-driven stories. The scholarship to Paris had been her family's dream as much as hers. Her mother had worked double shifts at the diner. Her father had sold his prized tools, all so Amelia could afford lessons. And when the acceptance letter came, her parents cried harder than she did. But then, 3 weeks ago, Daniel collapsed at work. The diagnosis came like a thunderclap, a rare heart condition that required immediate surgery. The procedure was expensive, and while his insurance would cover part of it, there were complications, debts, and unpaid bills that had piled up. Amelia remembered sitting in the hospital corridor, her fingers trembling as she clutched her violin case like a lifeline. She looked at Daniel lying unconscious, and the choice became unbearably clear. Chase her dream or stay and fight for him. The next day, she declined the scholarship. She called Paris and let the words fall like stones. "I won't be coming." Her heart shattered with every syllable. Life after that felt like a blur of sacrifice. Amelia took on extra shifts at the bookstore and the cafe. Her violin gathered dust while she paid bills, scheduled appointments, and sat by Daniel's bedside through the long nights of uncertainty. Daniel, ever stubborn, hated seeing her wear herself down. "Amelia, you can't keep doing this," he told her one evening, his voice weak but insistent. "I can and I will," she replied, brushing the hair from his forehead. "You don't get to tell me otherwise. You're giving up too much." "I'm not giving up. I'm choosing. There's a difference." But deep down, she knew it wasn't that simple. Every time she passed a music hall, every time she heard the strains of a violin drifting from an open window, her chest tightened with grief. One Saturday evening, her best friend Claire dragged her to a community music event at the town square. Amelia protested, but Claire wouldn't take no for an answer. "Just come," Claire urged. "1 hour. You need this." Amelia stood in the back, arms folded, until someone handed her a violin. The crowd had gathered, and the small band needed one more player. Her fingers trembled as she lifted the bow. And then, like a spark, the music flowed through her again. The bow danced across the strings, her soul poured into every note, and for the first time in months, she remembered who she was. When the song ended, the crowd erupted in applause. Amelia's eyes burned with tears she hadn't realized she was holding back. Daniel had watched from a wheelchair in the corner, his eyes glistening. "You belong up there," he whispered later. "Not chained here because of me." But Amelia shook her head. "I belong where you are." Still, Daniel's expression told her he wasn't convinced. 2 weeks later, things began to change. Daniel's health stabilized, and though he was still weak, he seemed more focused, more determined. He made phone calls Amelia wasn't privy to, scribbled in notebooks she wasn't allowed to read, and kept leaving the house under the pretense of short walks. Amelia grew suspicious. One night, after returning from a late shift, she found him on the porch, his phone pressed to his ear. His back was turned, but his words carried into the night. "She can't know, not yet. If this works, it'll change everything." Amelia froze in the doorway. Who was he talking to? What couldn't she know? When she stepped closer, Daniel quickly ended the call, forcing a smile. Just a friend checking in. But Amelia knew better. It all came to a head the night of the community charity gala. Claire had begged Amelia to perform again, and despite her reluctance, Amelia agreed. She borrowed a simple black dress, polished her old violin, and stepped onto the stage with shaking hands. The hall was small, but filled with faces from the town, people who had watched her grow, who had whispered about her lost Paris dream. The air buzzed with expectation. As she began to play, the notes rose like a prayer. Every sacrifice, every sleepless night, every ounce of love and pain poured from her bow into the room. By the second piece, tears streamed down her face. In the middle of her performance, she caught sight of Daniel standing in the back of the hall. He wasn't in his wheelchair. He was standing, strong and steady, clapping with the crowd. Her breath caught in her throat. Somehow, he looked different, confident, almost victorious. And then, when the applause roared and Amelia bowed, she noticed Daniel slip outside, his phone pressed to his ear again. She quietly left the stage, slipping out a side door to find him. The night air was cool, the moon casting pale light over the empty street. She spotted him near a lamppost, his voice low but urgent. She can never find out the truth about Paris. If she does, everything falls apart. Amelia's blood ran cold. What truth? She stumbled back, her heart pounding so hard it drowned out the distant sound of applause. Her dream, her sacrifice, his secrets, it all tangled into something she didn't understand. Daniel turned suddenly, his eyes locking on hers. For a heartbeat, neither of them spoke. Then his expression shifted from shock to something else, fear. "Amelia, how much did you hear?" he whispered. Her throat went dry. The violin case slipped from her hand, hitting the pavement with a hollow thud. The world seemed to tilt. And just as Amelia opened her mouth to answer, a black car pulled up to the curb, headlights glaring. A man in a suit stepped out, looking straight at Daniel. "It's time," the man said firmly. Amelia's heart stopped. Time for what? Daniel's jaw tightened. Not here. Not in front of her. But the man shook his head. No more delays. Amelia's world spun with questions, fear, and betrayal. What was happening? What truth about Paris? Who was this man? And what had Daniel been hiding all along? She backed away, her voice barely a whisper. "Daniel, what have you done?" The street fell silent. Only the hum of the car engine filled the air. And in that suffocating stillness, Amelia realized her sacrifice might have cost her more than her dream. It might cost her everything. Subscribe to the channel for more heart-driven stories and don't miss part 2. The man in the suit stood like a shadow beneath the lamplight, his face half hidden, his voice carrying a weight Amelia couldn't ignore. "It's time." Amelia's pulse raced. She looked from the stranger to Daniel, searching his face for answers. But Daniel wouldn't meet her eyes, his jaw clenched, his fists tightening at his sides. "Daniel," she whispered, her voice trembling. "What's going on? What truth about Paris?" Daniel's silence cut deeper than any explanation. The stranger took a step forward, his gaze cold and commanding. "She deserves the truth. She's already sacrificed enough." Amelia's breath caught in her throat. "Sacrificed? What does he mean, Daniel? What have you been hiding from me?" Subscribe to the channel for more heart-driven stories. Daniel finally looked at her, his eyes glassy with tears. "Amelia, I didn't collapse at work by accident. And it wasn't just about my heart." Her world tilted. "What are you saying?" The stranger cut in. "He's been hiding it to protect you, but the truth always comes out." Daniel stepped closer, his voice low, almost pleading. "I never wanted you to give up Paris, Amelia. I knew if you went, they wouldn't touch you. But if you stayed?" "They?" she echoed, confusion giving way to fear. Daniel swallowed hard. "I owe people money, dangerous people, the kind who don't forgive debts. The collapse, it wasn't just my condition. It was stress, pressure, threats, and when you gave up Paris, you saved me, but you also tied yourself to this mess." Amelia staggered back, her hands trembling. "So you let me believe you needed me, when really, you were hiding all of this?" "I wanted to protect you," he insisted. "I thought if I carried it alone, it would end with me. But then you gave up everything." His voice broke. "And I realized I couldn't let you carry the weight of a lie." Amelia's chest tightened until it hurt. The violin case at her feet felt impossibly heavy, like the weight of every sacrifice, every sleepless night, every dream abandoned. The suited man spoke again, his tone softer this time. "Daniel came to me for help. He's been working off his debt quietly, but time's run out. There's only one way forward." Amelia turned on him sharply. "Who are you?" The man met her gaze evenly. "Someone who knows how to fix broken deals. But the price is steep. If Daniel doesn't deliver by the end of the month, the consequences will fall on both of you." Her stomach twisted. Consequences? Daniel's silence confirmed the answer she feared. The man pulled a card from his pocket and pressed it into Daniel's hand. No more hiding. Decide by tomorrow night." Without another word, he turned and disappeared into the car, the headlights fading into the darkness. The silence that followed was unbearable. Amelia's chest rose and fell rapidly as tears blurred her vision. "You lied to me," she whispered, her voice breaking. "You let me throw away everything, my dream, my future, while you hid behind half-truths." Daniel reached for her hand, but she pulled away. "I thought I was saving you," he said desperately. "I thought if I could just buy time, I'd figure it out." "But you didn't buy time, Daniel. You stole it from me, from us." Her violin lay forgotten on the ground as she turned and walked into the night, her tears hot against the cool breeze. The days that followed were unbearable. Amelia buried herself in work, trying to forget the way Daniel's voice cracked when he begged her to understand. But the betrayal cut too deep. Claire noticed the change instantly. "You look like a ghost," she said one morning at the cafe. "What happened?" Amelia shook her head. "It doesn't matter." "Yes, it does." Claire's voice softened. "You've carried everyone else's burdens for so long, Amelia. When will you carry your own?" Her words lingered long after Claire left. Carry her own. That night, Amelia pulled the violin from its case and played until her fingers ached, the music spilling into the quiet apartment like a confession. And then mid-song, the words slipped from her lips. Subscribe to the channel for more heart-driven stories. It felt like a prayer, a promise, to herself. One evening, a letter arrived. Thick paper, sealed in red wax. Amelia's hands shook as she opened it. It wasn't addressed to her. It was addressed to Daniel. Inside, a single sentence. "Deliver what you owe, or she pays the price." Her stomach dropped. She raced to Daniel's apartment, the letter clutched in her fist. He looked pale, exhausted, but when she thrust the note at him, his face drained of all color. "They're serious," he whispered. "What do they want, Daniel? Money? Work? What exactly do you owe them?" Daniel hesitated. "Not just money. Information. I got mixed up with people I shouldn't have, promises I couldn't keep, and now they're coming for everything." Amelia's voice cracked. "And you were going to let them come for me too?" "No." He grabbed her shoulders, his eyes blazing. "I would die before I let that happen." But Amelia pulled away, shaking her head. "You already let it happen the moment you hid the truth." That night, Amelia couldn't sleep. Her violin sat on the table, the Paris acceptance letter still folded in the drawer where she had hidden it months ago. She thought about her parents, their sacrifices, their pride. She thought about Daniel, the boy she loved but no longer trusted. She thought about herself, the girl who had given up everything. And then she made a decision. If Daniel wouldn't fight his way out of this, she would. The charity gala organizers called her again, begging her to perform at their biggest event of the year. This time, Amelia didn't hesitate. She agreed. But this wasn't just about music. She had a plan. The gala would be attended by wealthy patrons, donors, people who loved the arts and supported young talent. If she played her heart out, if she bared her soul on stage, maybe, just maybe, someone would see her, sponsor her, give her a second chance at Paris. It wasn't just about reclaiming her dream anymore. It was about saving herself and Daniel. When the night of the gala arrived, Amelia stepped onto the grand stage, her violin in hand. The lights dimmed, the crowd hushed, and for a moment, the world held its breath. She began to play. The music poured from her like fire and water all at once. Grief, love, betrayal, hope. Every note was a confession, every crescendo a cry for freedom. The audience leaned forward, spellbound. Midway through, she whispered into the microphone, "Subscribe to the channel for more heart-driven stories." The crowd erupted in applause, thinking it part of her act. But Amelia's eyes searched for Daniel in the crowd, and when she found him, his expression wasn't pride, it was fear. After the performance, as the applause thundered and flowers were thrust into her arms, Amelia slipped backstage, her heart racing. She expected Daniel to come rushing to her, to explain, to beg forgiveness. Instead, she found the man in the suit waiting in the shadows. "Impressive performance," he said smoothly, "but talent won't erase his debt." Amelia's grip tightened on her violin. "Then take me. Let me pay it off, whatever it takes." The man's lips curved into a thin smile. "Careful what you offer, Miss Turner, because once you step into our world, there is no going back." Her chest tightened. "If it saves him, I'll do it." The man's smile widened. "Very well. We'll be in touch." And just like that, he vanished into the night. Amelia stood frozen, her violin trembling in her hand. When Daniel finally appeared, his face was ashen. He opened his mouth to speak, but before he could, a second letter was slipped under the backstage door. In bold letters, it read, "Paris awaits, but if you go, he dies." Amelia's scream caught in her throat as the letter slipped from her fingers. The choice was clear, and it was impossible. Her dream or his life. The curtain fell. Subscribe to the channel for more heart-driven stories, and don't miss part 3. The letter lay at Amelia's feet, its cruel words etched in her mind. Paris awaits, but if you go, he dies. Her hands shook as she picked it up, her violin bow still clutched in her other hand. The applause from the gala still thundered faintly in the distance, but here backstage, everything was silent. Heavy, Daniel rushed to her side. "Amelia," she cut him off, her eyes blazing. "You knew, didn't you? You knew they would use me against you." His silence was all the answer she needed. "You should have told me, Daniel," she whispered, tears brimming. "You should have trusted me." Daniel dropped his gaze, shame burning across his face. "I didn't want you dragged into this. I thought I could fix it before it came to this." Amelia's heart twisted, torn between love and fury. "And now I'm forced to choose between Paris and your life." Her voice broke. "Do you understand what that means for me? For us?" The man in the suit appeared in the wings again, his presence like a shadow swallowing the light. "Time is short, Miss Turner. One path leads to Paris, the other to his survival. Decide wisely." Subscribe to the channel for more heart-driven stories. Amelia barely slept. She sat by the window of her apartment, the city lights flickering below, the violin resting across her lap like a silent companion. Memories replayed in her mind. Late nights practicing until her fingers bled, her parents' sacrifices to afford lessons, the acceptance letter that had once felt like freedom, and Daniel. His laugh, his warmth, his collapse in her arms, the lies, the love. By dawn, her eyes were raw from crying. Claire's words echoed in her head. "When will you carry your own?" The thought terrified her. Carrying her own dream meant letting go of Daniel, but carrying him meant burying herself alive. The next day, Amelia went to Daniel's apartment. He opened the door looking exhausted, dark circles under his eyes. "You shouldn't be here," he murmured. "I had to be," she replied firmly. "I'm not leaving this unfinished." They sat in silence for a long time, the weight of unspoken words filling the room. Finally, Amelia spoke. "I have to know the truth, Daniel. All of it. No more half-truths. What do they really want from you?" Daniel rubbed his temples. "It started with money. I borrowed to cover medical bills for my father years ago. But when I couldn't pay back, I promised them something else, access to records at my job. I thought I could do it quietly, repay them, and walk away. But every time I gave them something, they wanted more." Amelia's chest tightened. "So you traded your integrity, and now your freedom. And now yours," he whispered bitterly. Her voice was steady but cold. "And you let me think giving up Paris was noble, when really, it was just convenient for you." Daniel flinched. "Don't say that. I love you, Amelia. Everything I did because I love you." She stood, gripping her violin case. Love built on lies isn't love, Daniel. It's a prison. But Amelia wasn't ready to surrender, not yet. She called Claire that evening. "I need your help," said, her voice trembling but resolute. "I'm going to the police." Claire hesitated. "Amelia, if you expose them, you'll put yourself in danger too." "I'm already in danger," Amelia whispered. "But if I stay silent, they win. And Daniel, he'll never be free." Claire agreed to go with her. Together, they spent hours gathering every scrap of evidence they could, the letters, the debt records, Daniel's emails. By dawn, they had a file thick enough to burn. Amelia arranged to meet the suited man one final time. They met at a dimly lit cafe on the edge of town, his black car idling outside like a silent predator. She slid the file across the table. "This is everything. Every record, every deal. If you come near me or Daniel again, the police will have it within an hour." The man chuckled darkly. "Brave, but foolish." He leaned closer. "Do you think the police can protect you from us? We're bigger than them. We're everywhere." Amelia's hand trembled under the table, but she met his eyes and whispered, "Maybe, but I'm not afraid anymore." His smile faded. For the first time, she saw something shift in his gaze, respect, or maybe calculation. "You've got fire," he murmured, "but fire burns fast." He stood, tucking the file under his arm. "We'll be watching. Paris or not, your story isn't over." And then he left us. When Amelia returned home, Daniel was waiting on her doorstep. His eyes were wide with panic. "What did you do?" he demanded. "I gave them a choice," she said calmly. "Leave us alone or be exposed." Daniel's face twisted with fear. "You don't understand, Amelia. They won't stop. They'll bleed us dry. You've made it worse." Her anger erupted. "No, Daniel. You made it worse when you lied to me, when you chained me to your mistakes. I'm done being your savior. It's time you fight for yourself." Daniel's expression crumbled, tears streaming down his face. "I don't know how." Amelia's heart broke. For all his strength, all his bravado, Daniel was still that scared boy trapped by his choices. She wanted to reach for him, to hold him, but she couldn't. Not anymore. The acceptance letter to Paris still sat in her drawer, yellowed but untouched. That night, Amelia pulled it out, smoothed the creases, and packed her bags. Daniel came to see her one last time before her flight. His hands shook as he handed her a small box. Inside was a silver locket. "I don't deserve you," he whispered, "but I want you to have this, to remember me, if things don't end well." Tears filled her eyes. "Daniel?" He silenced her with a gentle touch to her cheek. "Go live your dream, Amelia, even if it kills me." She pressed the locket to her chest, sobbing. "I never stopped loving you, but I can't keep losing myself in you." They held each other for a long time, the kind of embrace that feels like goodbye. Paris was everything she dreamed of: the cobblestone streets, the music halls, the symphonies that echoed through centuries of history. Amelia played with fire in her soul, every note carrying both joy and grief. But every night, she opened the locket and whispered Daniel's name. One evening, after a performance, she found a single envelope waiting backstage. No return address. Inside was a note written in Daniel's familiar hand. "I kept my promise. I fought, and I'm free now. Live beautifully, Amelia, always." Tears blurred her vision as she held the letter to her chest. She didn't know if she would ever see him again. But for the first time in years, she felt both the weight of sorrow and the lightness of hope. And as she stepped back onto the Paris stage, bow in hand, she whispered into the silence, "Did you enjoy this story? Kindly subscribe. Subscribe to the channel for more heart-driven stories."